In a quiet suburb on the edge of Brookhaven City, a story unfolded that would soon grip the internet, spark heated debates, and leave millions replaying the scene in disbelief. It began on an ordinary Tuesday morning, ordinary, at least, until a single father named Daniel Hart woke up and found someone in his kitchen who absolutely should not have been there, a woman, a stranger. And not just any stranger, but one of the most influential business leaders in the state, the CEO of the multi-billion-dollar tech corporation, Meridian Dynamics, a woman whose face appeared on magazine covers, business networks, and the walls of corporate headquarters across the nation. Ava Kensington, and she was wearing his shirt. At first, Daniel thought he was dreaming. The sun was barely up, slipping through the blinds of his small, modest home. He woke to the crackling sound of his old coffee maker sputtering in the kitchen. But he never made coffee in the morning, not before getting his 8-year-old daughter Lily ready for school. Still disoriented, still half asleep, he pulled on his sweatpants and walked out of his bedroom, expecting to find maybe Lily playing with switches she shouldn't touch. What he found instead made him stop cold. Ava Kensington stood at his counter, sleeves rolled up past her elbows, her perfectly styled hair tied into a makeshift knot, and his oversized gray t-shirt falling loosely over her frame. She looked nothing like the sharply dressed executive the world knew. She looked human, softened, almost out of place in the small kitchen decorated with drawings, school photos, and chipped ceramic mugs. She glanced up the moment she sensed him enter, and then she smiled. For a full 5 seconds, Daniel forgot how to breathe. He didn't know her personally. He wasn't connected to the corporate world. He was a construction worker, blue-collar, hardworking, grounded in simple routines. He shouldn't have had any reason to cross paths with a CEO whose time was worth more than some people's annual salaries, and yet here she was, barefoot on his old tiled floor, a billionaire in his $20 shirt. The news outlets would later argue endlessly about the details, how she got there, why she stayed, what happened the night before. But in that moment, she broke the silence with a sentence that would go on to be replayed across social media. The line that froze him in place. "Daniel," she said calmly, as if she had known him for years, "we need to talk about what happened last night." The world would latch onto those words, but for Daniel, hearing them live was something else entirely. He blinked, trying to replay the previous night in his mind. The last thing he remembered was picking up an extra shift at work, coming home exhausted, and stopping by the small 24-hour diner he and Lily always went to after her school musicals. He went alone this time. Lily was staying at her grandma's house for the week. He remembered the stale smell of coffee, the low hum of neon lights, and a woman sitting alone across the diner, her posture collapsing under the weight of something unseen. That woman, yes, it was her, Ava Kensington. She wasn't surrounded by bodyguards, no business associates, no entourage, just a solitary CEO with a glass of untouched water and a look that did not belong on someone who commanded boardrooms. The next memory came in fragments, a conversation beginning by accident, a spilled drink, a shared laugh that surprised them both, two strangers sitting in cracked diner booths talking like old friends about regrets, expectations, the pressure to provide. Both of them parents, both of them exhausted, both of them lonely in completely different ways, but nothing he remembered explained why she was in his house now. Back in the kitchen that morning, Daniel finally managed to speak, though his voice came out scratchy and confused. Why are you in my shirt?" Ava let out a breath, half laugh, half sigh, and leaned against the counter as if steadying herself for something heavy. "Because," she answered quietly, "you saved my life." Those words would later become the headline on nearly every major network. Daniel stared at her, unable to make sense of it. Saved her life. He remembered walking her to her car. She had seemed unsteady, both from exhaustion and from the emotional weight she was carrying. She had told him things no journalist had ever heard, things her board members would never believe she had admitted, that she sometimes wondered if the success she built was worth the pieces of herself she lost on the way. that she hadn't slept more than 3 hours a night in weeks, that being admired professionally and being seen personally were two very different things. He had walked her to her car, and then her voice pulled him back to the present. "You stopped me," she said, "when I was about to make a really terrible decision." She didn't say the word out loud. She didn't have to. It hung there, invisible but unmistakable. Daniel felt a chill crawl up his spine. She continued, "I didn't want to go home. I didn't want to go anywhere. I didn't trust myself to drive. You insisted I come here. You said it was safer. You said no one would find me, no one would pressure me, no cameras, no expectations." Daniel swallowed hard. He hadn't fully processed any of this the night before. He had been focused on making sure she felt safe, on not leaving a stranger, any stranger, in a state like that. Little did he know she was one of the most recognizable figures in the state. He ran a hand through his hair. I didn't know you were. Well, I just thought you needed help." She smiled again, softer this time. "That's why I trusted you." The moment lingered, quiet and strangely fragile. And then something else happened, something that would later become the spark of countless online debates. There was a knock at the door, firm, repeated. Daniel went pale. Ava whispered, "They're here." He opened the door to find 3 people in suits, Meridian Dynamics security. They didn't push their way in. They didn't raise their voices, but the urgency in their eyes said enough. They addressed her with corporate formality, relieved she was alive but wary of how the situation would appear if mishandled. Ava stepped forward, still in Daniel's shirt, still barefoot. One of the guards offered her a coat, but she shook her head. "I'm staying a moment," she told them, and with a surprising obedience they bowed their heads and stepped aside. She turned back to Daniel. "Last night," she said slowly, enunciating each word as if imprinting them in his memory, "you saw me at my lowest, and you didn't judge me. You didn't lecture me. You didn't use my vulnerability against me. You treated me like a person, not a headline." She moved closer, her expression resolute. "No one in my world does that." Daniel felt something shift inside him, a strange mix of compassion, disbelief, and the surreal awareness that this moment might change his life. She continued, "This morning, before you woke up, I called my assistant. I told her to block off an entire week for me. No meetings, no press, no negotiations. I'm disappearing." Daniel blinked. "Why are you telling me this?" Her answer was the part that left him frozen. The part news anchors repeated for weeks. The part that launched conspiracy theories, love stories, and endless speculation. "Because," she said, "I want to know what it feels like to live a normal life, and I want to spend that time with you." His mind blanked. Absolutely blanked. A CEO, a billionaire, a woman who had been declared one of the most powerful people in America, wanted to stay in his tiny house for a week with him and his daughter's crayon drawings on the fridge. Daniel shook his head slowly. "Ava, you don't even know me, but you're the only person who's treated me like someone worth knowing." She countered, "Not as an asset, not as a symbol, not as a machine that makes money." Before he could respond, she added another revelation, one that would later fuel even more controversy. "I didn't come to that diner last night by chance," she said. "I went there because it's where your daughter said her daddy takes her after her school plays." Daniel froze harder than before. "My daughter, Lily, you've met her." Ava nodded. 2 weeks ago, she lost a school project outside our headquarters during a field trip. I was coming out of a board meeting and she was crying. She told me you worked so hard but always made time to watch her performances. She told me you were her hero. Daniel felt the ground tilt under him. Ava went on. "She didn't know who I was. She didn't care. All she cared about was showing me the glitter star she made. I walked her back to her teacher, but something she said stayed with me." Her eyes softened. She said, "My daddy always helps people, even when he's tired." Emotion thickened the air between them. Ava took a step closer. I went to that diner hoping to meet the man who raised a daughter like that." Daniel felt his throat tighten. For years he had been doing his best, working long hours, juggling bills, trying to give Lily everything he could. He had no idea anyone noticed, especially not someone like Ava. He exhaled shakily. "I don't know what to say." "Just say I can stay," she replied. From that point, the internet's speculation took on a life of its own. Some claimed she was using him for a PR stunt. Others swore it was destiny, a real-life modern fairytale, a CEO seeking humanity, a single dad finding connection with someone far outside his world. But inside that small kitchen, beyond social media, beyond gossip and expectations, there were only two people, both exhausted, both scarred, both unexpectedly comforted by each other's presence. Daniel finally spoke. "You can stay, but only if you promise me one thing." She frowned slightly. "Anything." He gave a small, genuine smile. No business talk, no CEO mode, just Ava. Her shoulders relaxed as if he had lifted a weight off her. "Just Ava," she agreed. And according to those closest to the story, that was exactly what happened. For 1 week, she lived in his world. Grocery store aisles instead of corporate hallways. Homemade dinners instead of catered lunches. Board games with Lily instead of board meetings with investors. Laughter instead of pressure. Quiet instead of chaos. Neighbors would later report seeing the CEO helping Lily practice for a spelling test on the front steps. Others claimed they spotted Ava walking the family dog at sunrise, and one eyewitness swore he saw Daniel teaching her how to hammer a nail into wood, his hands guiding hers. When the week ended, Ava didn't issue a press statement. Instead, she returned to her office wearing Daniel's T-shirt under her blazer, a detail noticed by sharp-eyed reporters at a major conference. And when they asked her why, she simply said, "It reminds me of where I found myself again." As for Daniel, he didn't ask for fame. He didn't seek attention. He kept living his life, caring for his daughter, and going to work every day. But something had changed, not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly, in ways only he and Avi truly understood. And while the world still debates what really happened, what it meant, and what it might lead to, only two people know the answer: the single dad who opened his home to a stranger, and the CEO who showed up in his shirt the next morning, asking for something she had lost long before her success, a chance to be human again, and in ways neither expected, they gave that to each other. Their story is still unfolding. No headlines, no cameras, no scripts. Just two lives intertwined by one unlikely night, and the extraordinary morning that followed.